Welcome to Motivate. Today I am joined by our nutritionist and expert Leonora, who is going to be talking about all of the myths, all of the things that we read about, all of the questions that you probably have around prenatal nutrition, and we're really going to get into it today. Focus firstly on the questions we get the most about, which is the first trimester. So obviously I'm pregnant. I would say the first trimester is by far the most difficult trimester for me in both of my pregnancies. And it's very, very confusing about what you should be eating and what you shouldn't, and how you just navigate all of the symptoms. So you are going to help us navigate this period, because it is not straightforward at all. So let's just start with the first symptom that we get in our first trimester. Not every woman gets this, a lot do. And if you're one of these women, we feel for you. Let's talk about nausea.
Okay.
So why do we get nausea in our first trimester? What is this?
Okay. So in the first trimester, there's a flood of hormones, pregnancy hormones. So you've got HCG, and then you've also got progesterone. So the body is sort of getting used to all of the hormones that are influxing the system. Some women become very sensitive to that and develop nausea. I didn't have a lot of nausea.
I hate you.
I didn't have. I know, thank God. I didn't have a lot of nausea with that, but there are a lot of things that you can do. So foods that you typically ate before, you become nauseous too.
Yeah.
So interestingly enough, I find this really amazing with how the body works. We are all individually built differently. And I found out that I was pregnant when I ate a piece of mackerel, right? Which I love fish.
Yes.
I loved fish, right?
Yes.
And I went upstairs and I had a piece of mackerel, and my body was like, absolutely not. Like, you're not having this. Completely rejected it, right? And then following that, I couldn't have fish anymore. Subsequently, I also had a couple of mercury fillings in my teeth. And what the school of thought on with nausea, aside from it being an influx of pregnancy hormones, is that when you're pregnant and within the first trimester, your body is just really focusing on keeping that pregnancy viable. So it tries to reduce any sort of like toxic material coming into the fetus. And so with me in particular, my body was very sensitive to metal, with the mercury fillings and the mercury that's found in fish. So so two schools of thought, aside from the influx of hormones, there's also, you'll find that certain women become nauseous to certain types of foods.
So it's like your body's way of protecting you.
Exactly. Yeah. So if you've got a sensitivity to something and you're bringing more of that in your body, maybe not able to detox that, your body's like, hang on a minute, we don't need to do that. We need to sort of preserve the life of the infant and not so much at this stage worry about getting more nutrients to you.
And what if you're like me and everything is making you feel sick? So
that's a hard one.
Yeah, it's tough. Like, you know, I used to open my fridge door, I remember, and like smells of food that I love and that I know are safe were no longer. Like, how do you navigate that? Is it just a case of listening to your body?
That is exactly what it is. So I'm all about the intuition. So your body, your body's inner knowing. So we know what we need. And in pregnancy, it's sort of like you've got to relearn your body all over again. And it's being aware of, okay, what foods can I have? Because it's not just yourself that you're thinking about, it's also your baby. Yeah. So you're looking at what foods can I have? And so at this stage, maybe the amount of foods that you usually had are greatly reduced. And what I would recommend is saying, okay, I can have these foods. How can I make them as nutritionally dense as possible? If you have cravings for unhealthy foods, because like maybe the foods that you were craving before or having before make you nauseous, then how can I make these foods as healthy as possible? Maybe you're not able to eat as much. Can you supplement that with having smoothies, for example, or light broths, for example, to get the nutrition in? I think it's about really trying to understand what your body can have. And another thing is a lot of women may become more nauseous if they're not eating frequently. So having smaller meals more frequently,
isn't it?
Exactly, throughout the day. You'll find that you're less likely to be nauseous. And if you're having things like throwing up a lot and then you're hungry and then you can't eat, it's a terrible cycle. Yeah. So it's like just drip feeding yourself throughout the day with small, healthy meals that keeps you nourished and satisfied and hopefully staves the nausea off.
So really not being hard on yourself and sticking to that breakfast, lunch, dinner, big meal model. And just having what you can at different intervals.
Exactly, and really listening to your body.
And if you have any tips, if there's any mums watching that are just like, I just need to eat, I feel hungry, but I don't know what's going to settle my stomach. Are there any top tips you'd recommend? Because we hear a lot about crackers, we hear a lot about, you know, those bland foods. Is that the best thing to then settle on?
Yes, I would say yes and no to that. So again, it's about looking at your body and what your nutritional profile is. So we're all going to crave different things. You're all going to want different things. You're all going to have different levels of hunger. Some people may not be hungry at all. Some people are like absolutely ravenous and just can't get enough food into them. So hydration also plays a really important role in that, because sometimes we may think that we're hungry when in fact we're really dehydrated. So having a lot of different types of fluids, coconut water, filtered water, infusing that with like different fruits, for example, citrus fruits, great. If you're hungry, I would recommend having things like smoothies, for example, because you can get a lot of good nutrition in there.
So much easier to take down, aren't they? And like water was a weird one for me. I could not drink a lot of water. Sparkling, fantastic.
Okay.
Bought a lot of sparkling water that still needs to be drunk right now. I just got like a whole couple of it. My husband's like, clear this out. Why do we have so much sparkling water? But yes, that's a great tip. So sparkling water.
Coconut water as well. To reduce nausea, you can have things like ginger. You can have peppermint. You can have spearmint. I tend to go for that, but I couldn't, like when I did feel nauseous a few times that I couldn't have ginger. So again, I couldn't have crackers. So again, it's so like, I think in pregnancy, like we all research it and they're like, okay, do this, this and this. And it takes us away from actually taking that time to know what we need, because it's not a one size fit all approach. So we've got to take that time to say, okay, I can follow the advice, but I need to know what works for me as an individual and make my own sort of, you know, method of nutrition or, you know, health, as you say, for myself and my baby.
And so try it. If it's not working,
try something different and try and keep it as healthy as possible. Like always go for the best source of food or supplement or whatever you're looking for to nourish yourself with. I always say try and keep it as healthy as possible, because you're growing a life and you want to give that baby the best chance. So
cool. And so this is a big one as well. I mean, a lot of women, it's called morning sickness. I don't know why it's called morning sickness. It's actually more like all day sickness. And for some women, it's all night sickness, right? So in my first pregnancy, it was all day sickness. This time it was just 24-hour sickness, like just a constant feeling of nausea.
It's a hard one,
Is it okay to skip breakfast? Is it okay to skip a meal? Or should we just aim to break it down? Because again, I think it's quite confusing for women where you're suddenly growing a life. You're thinking, I need to eat more, but you don't want to eat so much. Is that okay, or should you make every effort to actually just keep trying to stick to those meal patterns?
That's a good question. That's a really good question. So I think it's about, again, listening to your body. So if you think about food is energy, and if our body doesn't need the energy, we won't become hungry. We won't develop those cravings or those urges to eat. However, you're looking at then balancing that with nausea and also making sure that your child is healthy. So in the first trimester, we have enough nutrient reserves to supply the nutrients to the baby. So that takes care of itself. If you are nauseous, I would recommend trying to not allow yourself to go hungry, because that just being hungry and nauseous is just, think about like the
worst combo.
You're just like not a nice person to be around, right?
And it's crazy hunger. It's not like, oh, I'm a little bit peckish. It's like, I'm ravenous. I need to eat something, anything. Go get me a McDonald's.
And that's what you don't want to have, because when you're really hungry, you just go for the most like fatty, unhealthy sort of like full of fat, sugar sort of things that just satisfy you then and there. So I always think having and it's sort of like preparing yourself and knowing, okay, I'm pregnant and these are the things that are likely to happen. How can I prepare myself so that I'm not likely to go on the bad side?
Into that.
Exactly. So I always say have things like light broths. It's nutrient dense, it's filling, it's satisfying. It's not so full or so heavy or so full of things that you think, oh, my body's just going to reject that. So light vegetable broths. You can have things like chicken broths, so like light beef broths, for example. Light salads, I think, work really well. And then if you can't have any of those things, then going to things like brown rice. Then going back into like the whole, I would say try and get like sourdough fermented bread, like slices of those, just plain, or then again the crackers that some people talk about. So that's where you can bring that in. And then small meals, little, but listen to your body. Sometimes if you're not hungry and you really don't need to eat, then hydrate with like a herbal tea or like a fresh fruit juice or vegetable juice, so that way you're still getting the nutrients in, but you're not like
maybe
stuffing
the
yourself.
Dehydration first.
Exactly.
And just then seeing if you're hungry.
Exactly.
Perfect. Thank you so much for taking part in today's video, and if you enjoyed it, then please do give us a follow on any of our social channels. So you can follow us on Facebook, you can follow us on YouTube, or you can follow us on Instagram, where we are constantly uploading loads of useful content to support you on your wellness journey. See you in your next workout.